We are the One Story Podcast. We believe in the power of a story. Everyone has a story, and that story is meaningful. Your story can make a difference. Your story can inspire others. Your story is important. At the same time, ultimately, everyone's story is a part of one story, the big God story.
It's not what you said. You're not who you said you were. When are you alone? When will you come back home?
It's World Cup soccer time. This is the One Story Podcast, and this is episode 25.
Dude, oh my gosh, I was watching. I was howling. I was watching. So the World Cup's going on right now.
Yeah,
but someone scored a goal.
In case you didn't know that,
okay,
that's what that was.
In case they're like, what? But he goes, go, and then he goes quiet. Oh no! But he went go, yeah, and then he ran out of breath. He goes, oh. That was just like, oh my gosh, that is hilarious.
Yeah, man, I'm pumped for. I'm enjoying it.
Who's your team?
The World Cup.
USA is not in it.
US is not in it. So
I always go for Spain.
I'm rooting for. I like Spain. I'm rooting for Mexico. It was cool. They beat Germany.
No, that was sick, right?
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's a big.
But at work, we pulled. Teams, and I picked Iceland, and they kind of blew it today. Well, the day we're recording this, they blew it and lost to Nigeria. Nigeria looks good.
Dang, the God, what didn't have his hand on that?
Nah,
dang,
dog.
Dang.
Yeah,
you need to pray. You need to pray harder.
Thanks for when you pray harder, dog. Your teams win. Hey everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
This is a One Story Podcast, just in case.
Yeah, this isn't World Cup Talk 2018. Oh yeah, I don't know if you guys are watching, but it's kind of it's weird because like soccer's not that popular in the U.S. and especially now that we're not in it. I don't know what like the ratings are and stuff, but
they're down.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The ratings are down.
It is because you see commercials and it's like, hey, I know the U.S. isn't in it, but like Belgium because they have the blah blah blah, or root for Argentina because
who cares?
Grass-fed beef. But anyways, let's get back to the real stuff. That's the One Story Podcast. The stuff that you guys care
Jesus
about.
Jesus talk.
Yeah, man. Just another great night to be here recording. Before we get into it, let's plug our
set the
social
scene
media.
A little bit. It's 11 p.m.
11 p.m.
in the church all alone.
It's getting a little weird.
No. I think I just see something, Drew. something in the corner of my eye.
Could be a little creepy here. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. So let's do a little bit of plugging on the social media front. We'll get that out of the way here in the front.
Follow allgraceup.blog.
Okay.
Look for your All Graced Up tees at allgraceup.shop.
You better get that right.
Sorry. I know. I honestly don't know where to find those shirts, but I'm wearing one right now and I like it.
All Graced Up is you've mentioned it, Wayna, Isaac's wife.
I haven't.
Yeah, you did. Oh, you were supposed to. I told you to.
I envisioned you mentioning it.
Dang. Well, mention it now.
My wife has a blog. It's called allgraceup. You can find it at allgraceup.blog. But it was just a, it's a blog that she does. Talks about life. Motherhood, life. Mm-hmm. I don't think I ever come up in it, but she sells teas that are that the proceeds go to causes and.
Yeah,
so
she's looking into like different outreach ministries that she's doing. So
you definitely should be the spokesman. No, definitely don't have me to do it.
Well, but no, just an example. Like during the Christmas season, wasn't it?
Yes,
she was putting together bags for.
That's where it started
for women in shelters, battered women.
Did you
shelters?
Guys? Yeah.
And stuff?
No, it was. Yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
You don't know. I mean, there's different. They keep
different
anonymous
stories,
stuff, but yeah, selling T-shirts and proceeds going to filling those bags to just love on those women that need it in times of need.
Did you guys have a meeting before this?
Wayna?
Yeah.
Yeah, we went over all the talking points, so I have all the notes here. Come on.
Who gave me this mic?
No, but and the T-shirts are cool. Isaac reps him a lot, and he shamelessly plugs him on his social media of him doing deadlifts, which is lame or something.
The deadlift? That was a power clean.
Oh, yeah, you're power cleaning in tights. So
Tell me you're impressed.
No, it was pretty good. That's pretty good.
That's what I thought.
I don't know why they do the weights now like thicker. Do they just want to make you feel better?
They're air weights.
They're
They're plastic. No, those are 45-pound
Those
weights.
are 45s. I know, but if the
They look
45s
huge.
we're used to were like
because they're metal.
Yeah.
They're rubber weights.
Exactly. So it's all an ego thing. Well, look at all, the full bars, and it's like, 200 pounds or something.
And the weights are falling off the end. It's like, how much is that? 135.
I honestly, I look at it and I was like, this is totally an ego thing. And not to you. I think they're making them like that so people feel like they're all buff and stuff. But no, but you get down.
Feels pretty good
whatever.
when you start stacking those weights on.
Yeah, I'm a long ways off. My broken knee doesn't allow me to get sick.
That's just your own insecurity.
What? That
Talking crap about the way I stack on weights.
Well, if I wouldn't put a video of me but whatever.
That was my ego.
You do what
that
you
was
gotta
my
do.
ego that led me.
You do what you gotta do, brother.
That allowed me to,
I still love
post
you.
that. What are we doing here again today?
So I think we're recording a podcast.
Oh, okay. That's what we're doing.
So let's talk about that. Tonight we kind of have a little bit of a different format, a special episode. We have Fenando Palaez. I don't know why I go to an accent on it. And then Andrew Garcia. Fernando is the youth leader here at Southlands Chino and runs, they call it Tribe for the youth. And Andrew is a part of the youth. So we have them on. And they give a little bit of their stories,
their background.
But we just wanted to talk about, Fernando's vision for Tribe and how the youth fall into, the equation of the church. And really, this felt like, it was about an hour, I think, of talking or whatever it was. But I feel like it's just such a bigger conversation that we want to definitely have him on again to really dig into the youth and
their perception of the church. I think that's what I really wanted to get into, but we didn't.
And we kind of touched on it, but not really. So I still, it was good. It was a good story, good interaction.
Yeah,
hope you guys
sure.
enjoy. But we do want to revisit this. Maybe have them on again, both of them, or maybe it looks different because there's like the perception of the youth in the church, the perception from people in the church. The Christians, how do they view the youth? Because I feel that they bring a lot to the table and should be. And I haven't been to a ton of different churches, but
or if you're in that age group, if you are a teen or a 20-something, hit us up. You can reach us on our Instagram.
Yeah,
which is what, Drew?
One Story Podcast.
Or you can email us at onestorypodcast@gmail.com.
That is right.
And let us know. This is. I think our demographics are vary. We don't really know who's listening, but there are people listening. And if you're a youth, if you consider yourself a youth, hit us up. Let us know. Yeah. We would love to. It's sad to say, but we're starting to not be as in touch with that age group. Yeah, we're dads now,
yeah.
So we're definitely in a different part of our lives, but I do have some good memories of what it was like, but I think things have changed.
It's different. I think every generation faces different
new
challenges.
Challenge, yeah.
And I just think there's so much, they hold so much value, and maybe they don't always feel valued within the church or within society as just being a young kid, a teenager. But when you look at the Bible, I think about this stories of the Bible and characters in the Bible, the people in the Bible. Mary was a teenager. A lot of people think that a lot of the apostles were teenagers when they started following Jesus, and they changed the world.
Dang,
so
powerful.
So we'll get into more of that because that's something I think that I have a passion for is the next generation, the youth, and how all that works.
They're the ones that are gonna expand the kingdom. They're the ones that are gonna keep the name alive.
And we'll give a shout out to Raul Villaseñor, my father.
Raul V.
We have Andrew on. This will be our fourth person. We did have a time with Rachel or Tom and Rachel, but my dad helped out and donated, and we got another mic set up. So
a whole setup.
Yeah,
so thank you so much, Raul.
Thanks, Dad.
Means a lot to us.
Appreciate it. Love you.
That was huge. So thank you very much.
Yeah. And now I remember what I was going to talk about because almost World Cup-ish. speaking of the world, I wanted to give a shout out to our international listeners. I saw, it's just crazy because like you just see the different country. We can see like who listens from where. It's wherever they listen from. So someone could be traveling, I guess. But in Europe, the different countries in Europe, in South America, Brazil, we had to listen. Down in Australia,
hit us up
in Southeast Asia.
We want to hear from you.
Yeah, so it's just cool that with this platform, it can just spread easily. And so
the internet is the devil's playground, but there are some good aspects to it.
Hopefully, the One Story podcast is shining some light on a little bit of the darkness.
Amen.
So yeah, let's get into the episode with Fernando and Andrew. Okay, so we're here with Fernando Palaez.
My brother from another mother.
That's right.
My twin brother.
What's up, guys?
And we also have Andrew Garcia here.
Hey, what's up?
What's up, Andrew?
What?
Doing good. We're excited to be here for another Friday night where we get to hear some good stories of what God is doing in our lives. So let's get right into it. Fernando, maybe tell us a little bit of background about you.
Yeah. I mean, first off, guys, thank you for having us on here.
You're welcome. Thanks for being
here.
here.
It was against my will.
Yeah, I know.
It was. We ran out of guests.
I'm sure you did. After sitting here and talking with you, they're like, no. I've heard part of that podcast.
Sounds about right.
The word's already spread of what you get subjected to.
Isaac's story.
No, but Fernando we go to church together here at Southlands Chino, and when we started this podcast, and me and Drew were like, we had a list of names, and you were one of the first people that I wanted to have on.
No, you're definitely up on top of the list.
Me and you connected guys. Early on. I think it's because we thought we were related. We were like, are you standing cover? We were going through each other's family tree just to make sure. With Mexicans, you never know.
Ancestry.com real quick.
A possibility.
So we're not. But our kids seem to think that we are.
Yeah, that's true. They're always confusing us.
Yeah. Okay. Like someone will grab my leg, I'll look, and it'll be like,
it'll be Gemma or Sienna.
Yeah.
This is vice versa, the same thing.
Funny.
Yeah. I remember you used to do that. Like when you go and grab another parent or someone else, another adult,
you look up.
You get all embarrassed. You're not my dad.
Right. Where's my daddy? Oh man.
So how'd you get to Southlands Chino? Tell us the story leading up to us meeting.
So, we'll start from the beginning. So, like, my story of faith is, so my grandparents are Christians, they're believers. My parents are believers. And it's kind of like that story where Paul talks about Timothy and talks about his grandma. And it's very much, it's faith that's passed down. So, my parents,
is that when they talk about like Timothy's grandma
and his mom?
Yeah, that's right.
I think Eunice is, maybe his grandma. I think.
And talked about how the faith was passed down, or belief in God was passed down to him.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's where, honestly, looking back at my life, I realized that how important that is, family faith. I know a lot of us don't have that, but in my walk, that, in times where I've doubted or just moments of weakness or whatever, you just look back at the history and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, God, you're here. So I first have to talk about, grandparents and parents, their faith. And then I grew up in a Christian church. I went to a few different churches in the Chino Hills area. But the primary church we went to was in Chino, Ontario area, Echoes of Faith. And went there for a very long time. I went to junior high there. And that's where, around 13 years old, that's actually where I gave my life to the Lord. So I hear a lot of stories of people saying, I was really young and I gave my life to the Lord. I was 4, I was 5.
You're a teenager.
I was a teenager and I grew up in the church.
So you knew what you were doing when you were.
Right. And one of the things that my parents drilled into me, but I really understood at an early age, was you have to know and have to have a relationship with God. And for me, I needed to know. I knew what the Bible said, and I knew historically stuff really did happen, but I needed to have that experience for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why.
So you believed in scripture before you actually.
Right.
I mean, I don't know about everybody, but that's kind of like my story too. Like I just went to church out of obedience, and it wasn't up until recently where I felt the presence of God and felt the love of him and was able to.
So you, go ahead. Okay. You,
I like to end my sentences like just with the random,
a cliffhanger.
I ended with so or to or.
sorry. But growing up, you were in the church and you just didn't believe, or you just
no?
Didn't?
I definitely did believe. I did believe,
but you felt like you made that commitment,
right?
Okay,
and I knew that, and I knew there was going to come that time. And my parents would always say, "Don't do it because of us. Don't do it because people are telling you."
Yeah.
Like when you're going to give the life, give your life to the Lord.
Yourself, right. Did you get baptized at that age?
I did. So at 13,
nice.
So at 13 years old, I was praying and I was like, okay, I know now I need to make a commitment to the Lord. But I was like, God,
did God speak to you, or what was it?
Yeah. So I remember I was 13 years old. I was big into wrestling.
WWF or WWE?
Watching WWF probably on a Monday night.
Who's your favorite guy?
And who was my favorite guy? I love like the old guys.
At that time, it was like The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Shawn Michaels.
Oh, yeah.
Stone Cold.
The Heartbreak Kid.
The Heartbreak Kid. Dude. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Those two guys right there.
Do you remember when Shawn Michaels was with the Rockers? His tag team deal?
No.
Wasn't it him and Marty Jannetty?
Oh, yeah.
Were the Rockers?
So when I was watching, it was Degeneration X.
Dude,
okay.
I remember the I got, for whatever reason, I was really wrestling too, but the one pay-per-view we got, that's when Shawn Michaels won the WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So.
I bet you your favorite was the 1 2 3 Kid.
I did like him.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Legit. He would walk up you and then double leg kick.
Right.
So funny.
I was big into it. And I remember that Sunday prior, going to church, and we had an evangelist come in, and he was talking about hearing from God, and I was really trying to push in and hear from the Lord. And I remember hearing my name being called, and I was like, okay, I heard my name. I get up and I run to my parents' room, and because they're in their room, and I'm like, did you call me? And they're like, nope. And they were having a conversation. They just thought, no, we didn't call you. Mm-hmm. So I run back and continue to watch. And probably, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes later, I hear my name again. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to still watch. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just myself. Mm-hmm. Happens again. So I get up and I run to my parents and I'm like, did you guys call me? And they're like, no, I didn't call you. And my mom's like, have you answered back? And I'm like, why would I answer back?
Yeah.
And she's like, it might be the Lord. And I'm like,
dang.
Whoa. Okay. So I go back and I put the TV on mute, and I end up like in the middle of like putting it on mute and just kind of like listening, trying to listen. I start praying, and then I hear it again. And that was the moment I was like, God is real. So it was like 3 or 4 times.
Did he tell you anything else, or just called your name? He
No.
was just calling you.
He called me, and then I just started weeping.
Just to let you know that he's there.
Right. And then you just feel, I'm sure you guys have felt the presence of the Lord, you know, and it overwhelms you. Mm-hmm. And then you're just like, okay. And right then and there, I knew, okay, I need to give my life to the Lord. Like,
this is real.
This is real.
Yeah.
I need to do it. I need to do this.
That's awesome.
And because I went to a private school at that time, we had chapels. And I gave my life to the Lord. Mm-hmm.
At school?
During
school hours?
Well, it was during a chapel.
Okay.
So they always do like an altar call type of deal,
okay.
but nobody ever goes up, right? Because it's just like it happens every week, and it's just kind
you
of
all
like
know each other.
Everybody knows each other, and everyone's just like falling asleep or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like waiting for that moment. Like I was
my
just
turn.
like, please. And
did people cheer, or did they boo you?
No, I don't remember. I didn't really care. I just went up there, and
but that story,
you just think of kids. It's just like, I'll be like, boo.
That story is just like, what was the prophet that
Samuel?
happened to? Oh, it was Samuel.
Yeah,
that's right. when he heard the Lord.
Right.
And he went over to ask someone, right?
Right.
Yeah, in that story.
Right. And
that's awesome.
So that was at 13 years old. That's when I heard the Lord, committed my life to the Lord, got baptized because I was like, all right, this is real. I know it. And I was already going to a private school and just being in the Word. Like I knew the scripture pretty well at that point. Fast forward to high school. That's where the whole story of Southlands comes in.
Okay.
So I had two options. I was big into basketball and I wanted to go to Damien. That was the plan.
What is Damien? It's like
is it a high school?
It's a all boys Catholic school.
Oh, okay.
And they're just big on sports.
Okay.
And that's where I wanted to go. I had friends going there. They had a pretty good basketball team at that time.
Mm-hmm.
The other option was Southlands High School, which was just a Christian high school. Basketball wise, no one's heard of. There's no basketball. There's really no basketball team.
Right.
But I also had friends going there as well. And long story short, I ended up going to Southlands. And at Southlands, honestly, there are so many things that happened that came from Southlands being at the high school. And then ultimately how I end up here is all through just the decision of going to high school there. I remember going to like youth camps there, and the youth camps we would go through there. Powerful, man. Like they take us up to the mountains, and we literally would have like these encounters with the Lord. There would be prophetic words that would be given. I'd write this stuff down, and years and years later, you end up seeing this stuff come into fruition. I had a crazy dream that happened in high school. And it was just like it's hard to explain. It was just like one of those moments where it was like a Paul moment in a dream where it was like a vision that I saw. And I was like, dude, this is in a crazy, intense, real dream that I know is real. It's a God dream, right? So I go to school and I tell Carrie, who's just a friend, just, at the time. And I tell her and she's like, yeah, that's definitely a God dream.
Carrie's your wife.
Carrie's my wife now. And so that night, her mom or her brother, Carrie's brother, calls me and he's like, hey, can I come over? My mom wants to talk to you. I'm like, oh shoot. Like they know that Carrie and I have a thing going on. And her brother's very protective of her. And I'm like,
thought it was one of
Trap.
yeah, I'm like, oh no. So
you're going to get bombed on, fool.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen. And her mom, her brother and mom come over, and her mom's like, sorry, take that back. I didn't tell Carrie the dream yet. Take that back. I told somebody else. And her mom comes over that night. And she's like, you had a dream last night. And I'm like,
wow.
Yeah, I did. And she's like, and this is what the dream's about. And she told me what the dream was about.
Dang.
And I was standing there just like jaw dropped.
Yeah.
Like somebody else, you know what I mean? Like is reading my mail.
Holy smokes.
It was insane. And I was like, that was another moment where it was, to me, it was that Paul moment, that definitive moment where like, yes, I had committed, but then I got knocked off my horse and realized, oh shoot, like God is real and this is very real, and God speaks to his people. Yeah. Kind of like actually, Isaac, your story.
If you listen to episode 1, you can hear about when God spoke to me.
Answering the call.
You know, Isaac and Drew, like that story. I remember you telling me, and I was like, dude, that's
did I call you that night?
You did. You called me.
I did call you.
Right.
I think I left that out in the story, but I called a few people.
Right.
I think I called Kelly. I called you.
Right.
I did call you, and I talked to my mother-in-law too, and she was laughing. She was like, yeah, that's how it works. I'm like, shut up. This is not how it works.
Right.
It's not real. Then I hit you up, and I think you're kind of laughing too. You're like, yeah, bro.
I was like, that's exactly how it works. It's not just like, it was like God only.
Dang.
Not only did he talk to you
from the beginning.
Right.
Knuckles. I called my homeboy.
Right. Not only did he talk to you, he's talking to Drew. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was crazy to me because this was that same situation where God's talking to my now mother-in-law, but is also talking to me. And I'm like, this is creepy weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like this is like Stranger Things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure.
On a whole nother level. So the dream that is like a landmark in my faith.
Right.
Music was a huge, just a huge part of, I mean, I grew up as a musician. And honestly, this is kind of tying into tribe now. This is kind of going in that direction. Being a musician, being in bands, and then just feeling like, okay, I feel like God is leading me in this direction, to actually evangelize through music.
Were you in a Christian band?
Okay, so that was my beef. And I'll start with growing up, we were not allowed to listen to secular music.
Mm-hmm. Your parents?
Yeah,
Okay.
Christian music only.
Dang.
And for a long time, I didn't really care. It didn't really matter because I didn't really love music all that much until I get into high school and getting an identity for myself.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm now playing
Music's a big
guitar.
thing.
Right, music's a big thing. I'm playing guitar. So a high schooler playing guitar, what do you want to do? You want to listen to classic rock, right? That's what you want to do.
For sure.
And so I started listening to all this old music, you know, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, all these, like just all these classic rock, you know, artists.
for sure.
And they're
Led
all from the
Zeppelin.
AC/DC. They're all from the devil.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was what I was told. That's, you know, and it was like, that was a hard thing for me as a musician, hearing Aerosmith's Dream On for the first time. And I'm like, what is that? And asking my, you know, asking my parents, and they're like,
Aerosmith is legit. dude.
right. And they're like,
Steve
oh,
Tyler
you can't
is-
really, you know, that's not godly music, you know? And I'm like, and the thing was, I really did have a fear. And I honestly thought, if I listen to this,
And you go to hell.
I'm going to go to hell.
Oh, dang.
And that was legit. It was a real fear for me. And so, but my wrestle was, sorry, but at that time, I'm like, why does Christian music suck?
You don't have to be sorry about that.
Right. You know, like, why does it suck? Like, if we are the chosen, not that we're chosen people, but if God has called us,
For sure.
and he's a creator and he's called us to create,
Why can't we?
Why can't it be
recreating
great?
Some
Yeah.
good stuff too.
why are we like 15 years behind in the music industry? You know what I
Right,
mean?
yeah.
So that was a hard thing for me to wrestle with. And I realized, like, finally years later was able to come, God gave me an understanding of that, and realizing that that's actually not what it was. There's a lot of like man-made fear from the church that's man-made that infiltrates, you know, the church, and it affects us.
For sure. They can steer people away.
Right. And you realize, oh, that's not really like a black or white thing. You know what I mean? Like if I listen to this song, I'm not going to hell. If
Yeah.
you know what I mean? There's like just certain, I think there's a lot of taboos in American
At least
Christianity.
you better hope not.
I hope not. You know?
No, but yeah, you're right. You're right. There is of what you should, or that fear of like, if I, you know, get into this, am I being led astray or
Right.
you
But
know.
I think God will give you that conviction though. Like if you really think it's like a thing, I think God will give you that. Like you'll feel it. You know, you'll know. Like God will say, like, this is probably not
Right.
Because you know, I get that sometimes listening to like I don't know why, and I love like old like 90s rap.
Yeah.
Like Tupac or
Yeah.
or
Biggie.
Biggie Smalls.
Yeah.
And sometimes like the lyrics, I'm like, man. And I never really a big lyric person, but then you start hearing about like, you know, the pimps and the hoes and the weed and the drinking, whatever.
Right.
Just like, it's probably not great.
Right.
So sometimes, and I'll turn it off, you know.
Right.
So, but yeah,
So-
you can, you know, but everybody loves Journey, right?
I mean, and so like my wrestle was, dude, like I would go out, and when I finally felt like, okay, you know what? I can listen to this. I felt like between my relationship with God, you know, I think it was a little bit after high school. I went like on a binge and I bought like tons of albums. And I remember like a couple months into it, like God just speaking to me. And it was more of a heart issue. It wasn't that like I went and I bought this and I'm listening to it. It was more of a heart thing. And dude, I threw it all away.
Dang.
I spent like hundreds of dollars on all these CDs.
Yeah.
If you guys
Yeah.
know what CDs are, I don't know if anybody does.
Andrew, so what they are, they're like little plastic.
CDs. I think I had one of those because I have an old car. It has a CD player. Is that what they use for?
That's true. That's true.
He
I
walks
remember-
into, what is this thing for? What is this little slot?
Right.
Yeah.
I remember
The trash
buying
can?
Queen, and it's like $30-$40 for like, you know, like a double CD. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And I'm
yeah.
like, dude, $30. That's a huge deal. You know what I mean?
sure.
So anyway, and that was like the music aspect. That was huge for me.
So this is in your early 20s.
This is right at high school. I'm probably 19,
okay.
18, 19 years old when this
Okay.
is all happening. And then, the biggest life changer is I met Carrie, my wife, at Southlands High School.
Okay.
So we met there.
You guys were dating in high school?
Yeah, right out of high school we were dating.
Okay.
And then
when'd you get married?
When I was 21.
Oh, you guys
Same
got married
year.
right away.
Right? You were 21?
2008?
2008.
Yeah. Dang.
Yeah.
So you guys have been married for 10 years too?
Yeah. This July.
Congratulations.
July 19th.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, 10 years this
I know I was blowing up our 10-year anniversary. I had to let everybody know. Been married for 10 years.
Right.
It was a milestone for me. It was big. Because when we got married, I was I was different, to say the least.
Yeah.
Drew?
No comment.
Drew knows. Drew knows.
Isaac was all graced up.
I think we have some pictures.
There might be some proof. Then how did
the
you...
official sponsor, All Graced Up. You can
There you
get
go.
your All Graced Up shirt at allgracedup.shop.
So then how did you get to this campus?
So fast forward, I'm attending Southlands and we're going to Brea.
Okay.
And we had been going there.
So you were like
Man.
a part of that church.
Forever.
Yeah.
I was a part of the high school. A lot of the people were teachers, and they're also elders and pastors' wives and stuff like that. So like all these people, I'm a little kid, in their classes and seeing them, and now,
You're
fast
one of
forward,
them. Yeah.
I find myself here, and realizing that was honestly, that was like a training, that was all part of the journey.
So that's how cults work, right?
That's exactly how it works.
Wow.
That's exactly how it works. So,
Kidding. JK.
but yeah, that's how I found myself here. They said they were going to start a Chino campus, and I grew up in Chino. I don't think there's many people that were from this area when they announced Chino. And when they said Chino, we moved to Upland. I was like, thank you, Jesus.
That was like,
'Cause it's closer?
I think you said that was like kind of like an answered prayer, right?
It was something.
Because you guys were commuting from Upland to Brea.
Right. And we were very committed, but at the same time, it was kind of one of those things where
It's hard.
we were praying, and Carrie had gotten a word from the Lord and saying,
Really?
Yeah, the year prior that something was going to happen in 2017. And then lo and behold, Chino happens, and then,
Dang. And then that's when we met.
That's when we met.
Pre-launch meetings.
Yeah.
So did you jump right on board leading the youth here, or was there even a youth program when you guys first started?
There was a youth program
Okay.
Already, because this was already a church.
But it was through Park, right?
It was through Park.
Okay.
Southlands was taking it over. They had people stepping in. I know Kelly was doing it. Kirk, Ryan McDonald was doing it.
So those are all the elders of Southlands.
Right. So those are all the elders. And then when we said, yes, we're committed, it definitely felt like we needed to step up, just in terms of
You and your wife.
Yeah, my wife and I, we just knew that we had come to a place where like, okay, we need to start pouring out. We had been poured into for so many years. And we signed up for youth, and now we got it. We volunteered.
And then it was and then you started leading it.
And then we started leading it. I'd never led a youth group before.
Really?
That was my first time. I hadn't actually gone to youth all that much ever.
Really?
I only went a couple times.
Why?
And so the times I did go, and this is huge this is part of my outlook on youth and how I do youth now, is my experiences in being in a youth group,
Right.
and just feeling like this is not relevant or relatable to me
Or lame.
whatsoever. Lamers, you know what I mean? Like
Why?
it was.
What was it? The church or?
just-
Because this was at Echoes, right?
This was at Echoes of
Okay,
Faith,
okay.
over there, and I had gone to other youth
It's a
groups.
pretty dope church name, though.
Yeah, no, it was cool. I can't really remember.
I think I want to
anything
start a
then.
church just so I can name it.
That's your heart's in the right place.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Keep going with it.
You know me.
Let me know how that turns out. A lot of people might show up, actually.
Yeah. It's a sick name.
Marketing.
So
It's going to be called Sick Church. Sick.
Come get fed. So, that was.
So was that like jumping into that? Was that a huge leap of faith for you guys, or did you feel?
Did God call you?
Like how did that go the first month or whatever?
Man,
like,
that
what
was
did it look
huge. It was. So we weren't even here because they were working on the building. So
Yeah,
we were
yeah.
leading at Kelly's house. So it was like transplanting everybody. Well, first of all, like
So when you came into Andrew,
That's what I was just gonna say.
You were already you were here before
Yeah,
Fernando.
I was already here.
Right.
for
So
a
what
little
did the
bit.
youth group look like before?
God, the youth group before it was fun, but because it was chaotic, really. It was all over the place. It was, I don't want to say not structured, but
It wasn't structured.
yeah.
Okay, I'll say it for you.
not to throw shade at anyone, but
but it's just your experience of what you.
It was-
I mean, you went through it. So.
yeah. So
And that was what the one that was here prior.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I was here a couple of months before. I kind of joined at a weird time where
It was in transition.
it was,
Church was in transition.
It was transitioning from Park to now Southlands.
Mhm.
Okay.
So everything that like, you join something, you get a basis for it, you come to love that. And I was like getting into that, and then it was kind of like take it away, thrown away, and like this is Southlands now. So it's like I had to learn a new basis. But really, it's really different from the way it is now.
Mm-hmm.
It was really like a lot of it was kind of like spur of the moment, like we're gonna do this now because I decided to do this 5 minutes ago, not I planned this
Maybe
out.
not well thought out.
And
Yeah.
how many people were in the youth group at that time?
There were a lot of people only because there was a lot of kids. If you want to say youth, like 7th through senior year.
And how old were you?
I
at the
was
time?
I was senior, so I
Dang,
was
so
like
you're hanging
16,
out with
17.
7-year-olds?
There was like 7,
Yeah.
8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, stuff
really?
like that.
I thought you meant maybe 7th grade.
No, even lower than that.
So, and then leading up to that though, because you just had you said you started 2 months before.
A couple, a few months before.
So what was your life before actually getting into the youth group?
Before, there was really no religion in between. Because I grew up.
There was no God.
Yeah, I grew up Catholic, so it's a very different story than Fernando's. Fernando was baptized 13, 14.
Mhm.
I was also baptized 13, 14, but for like 13, 14 months. I was a baby.
Yeah, for sure.
So, mainly for me, it was just kind of to give the godparents their title and the kids just kind of there.
You don't have a choice. Your parents just, that's what
they were
they
like,
do. That's the cultural and
Yeah.
So you grew up your whole life in the Catholic Church?
Did you guys attend a lot?
I know there's a word for it, but it was for those people like you go, Easter,
The
Christmas.
Creasters?
The Creasters. We were those people. We show up every so once in a while, or I spend the night at my grandma's house because they were super into it.
And then
so
you would go to mass with them.
because we were there, we got dragged along.
So
into
what
it.
was your perception of God at that, like leading up to coming to the youth group?
Honestly, it was very all over. Is because the people that I hung out with weren't really religious people. So, being influenced by other people, it's like you don't want your unpopular opinion to be outweighed by everyone else. So the people I was hanging out with were the people on my team, my wrestling team.
Oh, you're a wrestler. Okay.
Yeah, I was into wrestling, but like the real wrestling,
Wow. Just got voted wow. By the 19-year-old.
You can't see, but he threw a look over to Fernando.
He did.
That was pretty sick.
So they were all...
Fernando, I'd better watch out. I think he'd take you down, bro. You better watch your
Can we
P's and
unplug
Q's
his
over there.
mic?
So all the people that I hung out
What
with,
does this
they
button
were they were all agnostic, or they were all atheists. So I was kind of like,
All your
there's
friends,
something there.
your
My whole
wrestling
team.
buddies? Uh-huh.
So I was
Where
kind
did
of
that
like,
come from? Why was that a thing?
I don't know. It was just kind of like, I think that's just how it felt. Like all the
Groupthink.
people there were just.
It's groupthink, you know.
Yeah.
The cool guy probably was an atheist, and everybody kind of just.
Well, yeah, that's
tags
how
along.
it was for
mentality.
me. It was like
I was
I
like,
think there is, but if I don't want to, be punked around at practice, because I already was. I was, freshman year, I was like 85 pounds, like
Dang.
like 4'10".
I was 85 pounds in third grade.
Yeah, so I was already the guy being punked around. So if I had another unpopular opinion to throw on top of that, then they'll jump on it right
Good
away.
luck. So you didn't consider yourself an atheist?
No, I didn't.
So you believe there was a God, but you just didn't know where it all fit?
Yeah.
But you kept to yourself because you were around.
Exactly.
You just didn't.
Yeah.
There was no need to argue about it.
Yeah.
Did they talk about God, like there not being a God?
They would.
Like was that like a topic of discussion on a regular or?
It's mostly I didn't say it because I witnessed them actually make fun of a kid who was religious.
Oh, so that's where he came out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I never, because I kind of believed, I never jumped on that, like making fun of the other people. I just kind of was there while it happened.
And when you saw that, you put your cross necklace back.
Yeah.
Stuck it way down.
Yeah.
Like, wait a second.
So from in between, like maybe I stopped going to Catholic church like when I was like 8. I did my first confession. So I was able to start taking communion through that church and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But then we just kind of stopped going. And then up until I think my sophomore year, my sister started going to a Christian church with her boyfriend, her boyfriend, now husband.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went there. We were still Christians. We went for Easter. And I was like, this is totally different because they had the live band. They had everybody in it. The worship. It was just like, it was.
Was it Park?
It was it was somewhere far.
Okay.
And I was like, this is awesome. Like, I want to do this more. But then at the same time, it was also scared to let other people figure out this is what I'm doing in my free time. So I'm not going to let them, so it kind of just scared me away from it.
So at that time, you're in high school. You're a senior, right? And this is around, we'll just say you're in high school. Did you know of any like other Christians? Did you know that there was any other people on campus that were like, Christians or religious? Like, people consider that religious, but.
Well, there was a Christian club, but people only went because they offered free pizza.
Hey, man.
And that's how they got you, because
no joke, bro.
you walk
That's
into
how they
the
got
door. You walk into the door and they lock it. So you can't you can't just grab the pizza and leave.
That's how you start a cult.
They would lock the door, so I never went. I never wanted to get locked in during my free lunch. There was like pizza or stay. Is like, it's just not, the odds were there. So
did you ever go?
I never went.
Okay.
So I mean, I had a couple people on my team go for the free pizza, and that's how I learned they locked the door, because they were like, yeah, we went for the pizza,
and
but then we got stuck in, so we couldn't leave. So it was like, okay, it seems kind of like a trap. So there was people I knew. I had friends outside of the team, but really I only hung out with my team. So it was the thing that was not talked about.
So when you got into Park, you were in a senior, you said?
Yeah, it was my senior year.
Okay. And then South Ends took over, or that transition happened.
Was that a secret though, too? Coming to church, was that a secret too?
Really, I came
after wrestling season, and
actually no, I came towards the beginning, and it was everything that I kind of avoided actually kind of happened, because they learned. I didn't tell anybody. Still, I didn't, parade it around.
How'd you end up over here?
I had a friend. They kept like saying like, you want to come, you want to come. They kept like pestering me about it. I was like, no, I really don't. But if it'll get you to stop asking me, then yes, I'll come. I'll go.
Sick.
So I went to a service, and then I went to the service, and it was just like, it wasn't the same as what I experienced at the other one, because I already had kind of because it was small. The other church, there was hundreds of people. It was like a theater, and it got filled. It was the band. It was awesome. And then I came here. It was kind of smaller. There was like maybe 2 people on the worship team, so it was a little bit. But then I came to the youth, and it was unstructured, but it was fun. So I kept coming, but of course I didn't tell anybody. And then they found out, and they would tell me stuff all the time.
They started bullying you.
Yeah, because we would do this thing.
Did you just do single leg?
Dude, that's what filled my anger onto drill practice.
Oh, really?
It really was, because it would make me so mad, because what they would do was, before we warm up for our league matches, we would put on like this little show to show off. May the power
of Christ compel you.
Dude, we would get together, and like we would warm up, and they'll be like, oh, do you want to say a little prayer before we go? Do you want to pray for this? You want to pray? Yeah. And I was like, and then one time I actually told them, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I will. And they're like, no, we don't want to hear it. I was like, so it was kind of like me being scared, and I finally admitted up to it. And then they were like, no, we were just kidding. It's a joke. Like, we don't want that. And then so I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And then what really pissed me off the most one time was, it was at league finals, and there were so many people there. And so somebody had left this bracelet there that it was like a little rubber bracelet that just said, God's got this. And one of my teammates picked it up from the bleachers, He put it in my hand and said, "Here, take this because you're Christian now. You're all about religion. This is all you are now." I was like,
so you were being rejected by your friend, your so-called friends.
Yeah,
at the
yeah,
time.
yeah. And
How did that feel like? Did you feel hurt or?
It sucked really because I even
Angry,
had
of course,
kind of
but-
like a leadership position. I was kind of like we didn't call it assistant captain, but my coach always threw me in like, you're the captain without the title,
Okay.
because I didn't want the title. I didn't really like being out there. I don't really like to do I don't like to be paraded around. I don't like to be in the spotlight. So
Well, that
he
explains
was,
why you came on the show today.
yeah. So he was just like, you're going to be doing it just kind of like secretly, like you're the captain without the title.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like, I'm trying to control these people, trying to be a leader for the team. And it's like being a leader without any respect because of that one thing
From
that I
them.
do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It must have been a real struggle.
Yeah.
Especially probably playing a sport that you loved.
Yeah.
And that was taken away from it.
Yeah, it was kind of, because for me, it was high school. Like I said, high school was kind of sucked for me because I was the little twiggy short kid that's like, every day I walk up, they're like, "Oh, you're at the wrong school. The elementary's over there." I'm like,
Dang.
okay, whatever.
Burn.
So then it was like,
Was there anything that you tried to do to fit in, or like?
well, yeah, that's what I, kind of like pushing away religion is what it was the thing that I
Okay.
did to
Okay.
fake to make it, I guess.
Okay.
And so then it was just like, that was kind of like the safe haven. That's where I went when I didn't, because they like, you pick fun of each other and everything, but it's like, that's where you guys are. You're a team, so you guys are with each other and everything. And then once the religion thing came in, and then it was
What was
just
the
like,
environment or the culture at the throughout the rest of the school?
it wasn't really, it was public school, so it wasn't religious driven. It was like, you're religious, but you don't, it's not plastered all over the
yourself,
place.
yeah.
It's not like there's groups here, pray area, this and that.
That's how it is, huh? Everybody has their groups, and so you hung out with the wrestlers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I hung out with the stoners.
We'll go back to. No, you didn't.
It's
You
same-
hung out with football players.
Same.
The
It's
stoners.
pretty much the same thing.
Oh,
Stoners,
yes, yeah.
wrestling, football, it's all the same thing.
That's true.
I hung out with Drew.
Label me. We'll jump back into high school. So when did you meet Fernando?
I met Fernando when he came in to the youth, and it was kind of a weird start because he came in kind of unannounced. They kept telling us like, "Oh, the new leader's coming in," and he kind of just didn't say anything. He was just kind of there. And before youth, we had people just hang out, play, whatever, and he was in there playing basketball. And I was like, "Who's this new youth?" He's
Who's
like
this kid?
15-year-old kid coming in. And then
The
they're like, he's like, "All right, guys, come in." I was like, "Whoa, not only is this new kid coming in, he's trying to tell us what to do." Yeah.
That is freaking hilarious.
And,
This new kid.
And so I was kind of close with the leaders that are already there. So I
Thought
kind of
about
went
putting
up
him
to them.
Putting him in a chokehold.
I kind of went up to them. I was like, "Who is this guy? Like, he's like this new youth. What's up with this guy?" He's like, "That's the new youth leader." I was like, "Oh, really?" And they're like, "Yeah, his wife's over there." I was like, "His wife?"
He's married.
What?
He has kids.
Yeah, I was like, "What the heck?" And
He
then-
drives.
so he started to like introduce himself and everything. I was like, "Oh, okay."
It's funny because if you follow us on Instagram, we'll post pictures of Fernando and Andrew. But you look like
Could
one
be
and a half
related.
years older than him.
Yeah, probably. Probably.
I mean, he almost looks older than you. So you meet him, you think he's another kid.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not. You're the youth leader. So what did that start to turn into? Like, what was the vision that was given to you, and then what was your vision overall?
And just to give context, this is what from this point. This is a year and a half ago.
This is
or
August.
No, not even
Not
a year and a
even
half
a year
ago.
yet.
No.
Hasn't even been a year.
Hasn't
It's
even been a year.
August of last year. Of
2017.
2017
Yeah.
Okay.
is when I came in.
Just give some context for
Because our launch
frustration.
date is in September.
Right.
So you guys started right before our
Right.
launch date.
So we're coming up on a year here.
Right.
Pretty
Pretty
soon.
soon, yeah.
So I come in. Is there a vision? I don't want to say there wasn't a vision, but it was more of like, we just need somebody to take this over.
And then you felt the call.
And own it
Mhm.
and go as far as you can go. Like, whatever you want to do, we'll back you guys
So you
up.
weren't given like a curriculum or direction from leadership.
Not really.
Okay.
They
No,
said,
and that's
yeah.
fine. I'm not saying like you
Right.
should have. I'm just
Right.
Yeah.
And they said, we'll help you out. but
Just
do what you
support
got to do.
That's awesome.
And I had to
that's great.
learn, and it was learning as I go, because exactly that. Like, okay, I was doing topics, and then I was like, not that I was running out of topics, but it was hard to keep up with. You know what I mean? Like, I had a list of ideas, but I felt like people weren't, or the kids weren't really like grasping it. You know?
And when you came in, how many kids were there at that time? Because it was small. I think I remember it being pretty small.
Right. I think one time there was about 20. I mean, it would vary. Yeah, it would vary.
A lot of kids actually did leave during the transition.
Right.
Coming from, because like I said,
They didn't want some kid.
Yeah, they didn't tell them what to do. They didn't want someone younger than them telling them what to do.
Nice one.
But
Nice one, Fernando.
they
I'm one of you guys.
No. It was because it really did went from like a place where people would really just come to hang out more than get a message. I mean, the message was there. They tried and everything, but
when
people,
it kind of started to become a little bit more real,
when it came
or about more digging into,
yeah, there was
living like
because you
Jesus.
said that it was chaotic. So
Yeah,
now
yeah.
that there was some structure.
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh.
So
out.
what did a typical? I mean, was this Sunday mornings?
No,
or-
this is Wednesdays. So
Okay.
Tribe is on. So I'll do a plug. So
Okay, here we go.
So Tribe
Hashtag
is
ad.
Yeah. So Tribe is every Wednesday at 6:30.
Weedsday, you mean?
yeah.
Isaac.
I didn't tag that. So what are you? I swear it was one of your kids.
So we meet every Wednesday at 6:30,
Okay.
and then we'll play games, and then we'll get into, we'll do worship, and then
Who does worship? Do you do it or no?
Asia. So Kelly's the pastor's daughter.
Okay.
She'll do worship. I play
Nice.
guitar and I
Sing.
back her up. Yeah. So
Awesome.
and that was something that wasn't really going on
beforehand.
and just in kind of like growing up in church, you just feel like, well, there needs to be worship, and there wasn't that, and a lot of kids wanted that. And
can I just point out something too? Like, we're talking about, Tribe is this, and there was something before. There's a ton of different ways to do church, to do a youth group, but we're just talking about like we're not trying to badmouth what was going on before, but just kind of what you've came in to create.
Right.
And so I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
So it
How
doesn't sound
did
like
the name Tribe come about?
praying, and honestly, it was like 2 or 3 names and kicking around.
What were the ones that got rejected?
I don't even remember. There was.
That's how lame they were.
Yeah, it was pretty lame.
I needed an example.
I can't even think of it. I have it written down somewhere, but I had only like 2 or 3 names, and I thought of Tribe just because I was thinking about the tribes of Israel.
That's sick.
And Jesus is, he's called the king of the tribe of Judah, right?
the Lion of
The
Judah.
Lion of Judah. And when I think of that, I think of the tribes, and I think of like all of us. And I honestly thought of Park, and I thought of Southlands, and I thought of us as different tribes coming together.
all
And-
under the tribe of Jesus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're all, surrendering to Jesus in this thing. So, that's how it came up.
That's
Nice.
dope.
Yeah.
And the vision for Tribe was, okay, man, like this is what youth was like when I went to it. I've talked to a lot of different people, and I know it needs to be different. We need to do things differently. But not only that, my biggest fear was looking at just the landscape of all of my friends that I went to high school with, mind you, a Christian high school.
Okay. Yeah.
Most of them are not in church
Now?
now.
Okay.
And my thing is like we're like kind of like dubbed the millennials, right? So we're kind of like in that age bracket, and there's a reason for that. And kind of like doing studies and digging further. And I at the time when I took over Tribe, I didn't really know why. And I'm like, I just knew that there was this feeling. I even had that feeling. I had this feeling of like American Christianity is a little fake.
Yeah.
Right.
Come on, brother.
It's the one God fits all.
Right.
It's like,
And
how does God
mega churches
work
and
for you?
prosperity and
Yeah.
like I grew up
the consumer mentality.
right,
Yeah.
and we grew up in that, right, in the 90s, going through that kind of. Well, if you
Well,
did,
not me.
well, I'm just saying, like if you were around in the church in the 90s, that's kind of like what was preached and what was thrown at you. You're the head and you're not the tail, and you're going to prosper and whatever you name it and claim it. And all
like
these
that.
things were taught to
Babe,
me.
this next shirt, name it and claim it.
But here's the deal. Here's the deal with that is that a lot of us, heard that stuff, went to church, and that didn't pan out. That didn't happen. And what does that do? is all of a sudden it leaves you with, well, that's a bad tag, tagline. And
Or
that's
when-
not really biblical.
Not only that, when reality starts to hit and you start
Right.
to struggle and your faith is not strong enough to withstand whatever you're going through in life,
Right.
and you just kind of like, well, God's not real,
Right.
and just maybe move on.
And that's where I
Dang.
found a lot of my friends, maybe not exactly saying those things, but you realizing like, no, man, like that's not for me, because, and so here's like some statistics. These were things that drive me every single day when I'm thinking about Tribe and trying to figure out what I'm doing. So right now, Generation Y, which is the millennials, is the largest living generation in America. It's outbeaten the baby boomers. So the millennials are at 75 million in America.
Dang, Gen X was getting down.
Right, man.
Okay.
So it's big, man. 66%.
It's okay, Andrew. You can laugh. Need someone to laugh at my jokes.
Don't encourage them, Andrew.
But most of millennials don't go to church.
Yeah.
So they'll grow up in church. If they did, they get into high school.
And then they leave.
And once they hit college, peace out.
Yeah.
I'm not a part of it. Well, why aren't they a part of it?
It's kind of like your surgery, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. 66% of millennials say church is fake. That was the Barna group, which is like a big Christian statistics group.
I always say that too. I've always made an example of people thinking of Jesus as like a legend or like some mythical, like some mythology or something.
Yeah,
It's
King
like-
Arthur.
But I think that comes from actually hearing people saying like kind of like that. It's fake or it's a legend or it's like, is it though? But then, after going to school and learning and stuff like that, or even just digging in scripture, you realize, no, these are real, testimonies or testaments to what happened.
Right. And so like another thing that was big is like our parents' generation and the generation before them, they never wanted to wrestle and tackle the conversations and the issues that we had. You know what I mean? So I remember asking questions to people, my parents or even other, the older generation, and nobody would want to like, well, what do you think about this? It could be anything, right? It could be racial injustice or finances or even like gender, is a big one. So, patriotism, you know what I mean? That's huge. And I'm not anti it, but there's a lot of questions we have where you're more of a patriot than you are a Christian.
Where does your allegiance lie?
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so those issues are the issues that actually drive millennials away, because it's like, well, you say you're a Christian, you say your message is love, but your facial expression says otherwise.
Yeah.
And so that drives me every single day to know that my fear is for my students, my kids, that they're going to walk away. And I hope that my prayer is that I give them enough understanding and actually tackle those big things.
So you guys do talk about controversial issues within Tribe.
Right. So I started this thing, Carrie and I, we came up with this idea called Tribe Talk. And we do it once a month. And we have this box and there's cards, and we tell the kids
Anonymous questions.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
just write your questions, throw them in the box, and we'll have Tribe Talk, and it's anonymous. You put whatever you want in the box.
And then they just get to hear from you guys.
Right.
Do the other kids chime in?
Yeah. So kids make fun of it because it's kind of like an AA meeting. We turn it into like we turn all the
in a circle.
Well, it's just, it's just really cool because I don't know if you heard the episode when I talk about Cuba, when I did the missions trip in Cuba, and we did the same thing with the youth. And I thought I'd never been a part of something like that.
Right.
And I grew up in the church, and questions aren't exactly encouraged,
to
talk
exactly
about just anything,
right?
So I thought that was powerful, and what you're talking about, that's awesome that you're doing that,
right? And it's trying to stay relevant, trying to stay fresh, but trying to also let them know the Bible is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Right.
That never changes.
God,
right?
Yeah, God never changes.
And God never changes. Now, we're like the ocean, the tide comes and goes. You have your storms, and our emotions are constantly changing. But like, let's talk about the issues, but realize that God never changes.
And also too, people are talking about it, whether it's on media, social media, TV, movies, all those things that you're talking about. Like, the world, I'm putting in quotations, is
Yeah.
talking about, sex,
Right.
drugs, alcohol, different relationships,
Right.
LGBTQ
Right.
conversations,
The gun control, like
Gun
this
control,
protesting that.
immigration.
But the thing is, all that stuff is so much louder than God. And when I say louder, it's just God is like a background to. It's like an underground thing or something. It's something that's like so counterculture, you know. But it's like, how is that countercultural? It's something that changed the world.
But
you know what I mean?
this is
well,
where
my point is, though, is that the church isn't talking about those things.
right.
And if the church isn't talking to the youth or talking
Right.
to the full-on congregation,
Right.
I mean, where are they going to get their information from?
Right.
All these other sources. And
Right.
those talks have to happen.
Right.
And you have to, like what you're talking about, that's awesome.
Right. And I have a buddy, Ryan Tillman, shout out to him. He's an officer for Chino PD. He started an actual program called Breaking Barriers, which is all about racial groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in law enforcement, tackling the issue. He's a Christian himself. He's a believer, but he's an officer. And this is a big issue, right?
Yeah, you see it on the news all the time. Or
And
how,
so
yeah.
it takes another believer to say, you know what, I'm going to step up and say, I'm going to tackle that conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he does. He goes to schools, he goes to churches, but those are the things that if we don't have those conversations, what ends up happening? Someone's going to go and end up forming their own little protest group, and then they feel validated because they're heard. And then it's like, well, God doesn't care. Actually, God does care. It's just now man's opinion that gets in the way.
And not only that, they start to believe those lies.
Right.
And they start to be misled.
Right.
And yeah, man. So
what is for you, Andrew, when you're in the tribe talks? Like, how is that for you? Not saying that, I mean, I'm sure you maybe throw some questions in there, but it is anonymous. But do you feel value in talking about those kind of issues?
Honestly, I think those are probably one of the best nights that we have for the whole thing. It's because it's kind of like getting away from the scripture, getting away from that stuff, not completely thrown away, because that's what he uses to help us.
That's the foundation of the conversation.
But it's now getting into the problems that the kids are having,
that you're really dealing with.
yeah, rather than it like maybe coming up in a message that they're like a sermon or something that they're planning. We actually get to present the problem that we're having anonymously and talk about it with
Are there
everyone
any
else.
common issues that are coming, like anything that it's like that
I would
comes up
venture to say
commonly?
a lot of it is probably relationship issues.
Yeah. So
because of the age.
Yeah. So boyfriend, girlfriend.
Yeah.
You know,
How
do
far
I
is
deal?
too far?
How do I deal with? Yeah. There you go. Bullying, getting picked on.
Yeah,
you know,
that
that's
comes up
that's
a
kind of
lot.
that,
That's something you dealt with.
that comes up a lot.
Mm.
And
What are they getting bullied over? Is it like social media bullying or like?
I haven't had that one, but I will say that I have heard it happen. But all I'm saying is from what we read,
Right,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? It's more of like, you know, at school, you know, with friends, or not
Yeah,
with
yeah,
friends,
yeah.
but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, just the stuff
So-
that high school kids do.
Right.
But
Yeah.
but it is a big issue.
it's a huge issue because it turns into
then-
insecurities and depression and bad cycles, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, yeah, they're like, I'm gonna get rid of the anonymity of one of them that I put in, and it helps because I had this weird period where it was like I had to really figure out who my true friends were, and it was kind of hard for me to do that. So I was like, how can I get someone to help me talk about this without making a big deal about it and everything like that. So I was just like, well, I want to know other people's opinions on it. So then I wrote in a card, put it in the box, and one of the tribe tops that we had up next was dealing with that problem that I had put on it. So I really do think it was a good idea, and it really helps a lot with the whole youth and everything. And
So you felt that you gained something from that.
Yeah.
Either Fernando speaking to it or some of the other kids, maybe they were facing the
Definitely,
same
yeah.
thing.
Right.
And I think that, I mean, just to kind of go to that, I mean, we can't really fully put our trust into people.
Right.
I mean, we can only lean on God,
Right.
like, and fully trust God. I mean, because we'll always be let down. We'll always be let down.
Exactly.
And it
And-
sucks to say, but it's the truth.
that's basically what they said was like, you
Dang,
can have your
dropping
friends,
wisdom, son.
you can have your friends and everything like that. And, no matter how close they are, no one's ever
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
be closer to you than God.
Yeah.
And so that's really,
and that's easier said than done.
Exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
But it's truth.
Yeah.
That's true.
And it's awesome when you see them connecting the dots themselves, you know, and when when there's a conversation happening, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this person shares a story and that person relates. And then all of a sudden you see the light starting to click and you're like, it's happening. And it's not even, we're not even doing anything. You know what I mean? They're just
because you're
figuring it
starting
out.
the conversation,
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
you're putting it out there. You're giving these kids a voice. A lot of these kids, I'm not saying a lot of kids, but kids, I mean, it's you can't speak. You know, you can't tell how you really feel because you're afraid of rejection. Right. You're afraid of being, you know, picked on, or like kind of like what you went through. You know, you're scared. You feel alone, and when you feel alone, you start to, you know, that's when things start going bad. You know, that's when you start looking for things like coping mechanisms and stuff like that, because you're whatever hurt or pain you feel. Right. So what you're doing is kind of like what we're doing here. That's true. You're making it known that they're not alone in this. That you know, there's someone that's knows what you're talking about, knows how you feel, know what you're going through, and not only that, we're here with you. Right. So what's the vision for Tribe? So. Because you were talking, you said that God is just calling you into like a new realm. So, I mean, the purpose of Tribe in and of itself is to let kids know that they are custom made. They're one of one. God has called them to a bigger story, right? Yeah. So that's like the motto right there, right? We say, so like our little slogan is lost in the right direction. And it's very simple. You know, without Christ, when I was not a Christian, I was lost in the wrong direction, you know, but now I found myself lost in the right direction, you know? But it's all evangelizing. It's realizing that this is not about us. And I'm realizing now the journey that God's brought me through, God's equipped me through there's been a lot of hard times, you know, and just a lot of questions and a lot of whys, a lot of letdowns, but realizing now I have a lot of, there's a lot of things God has brought me through with music and knowing people, and even Isaac, and just gathering all my friends together and being like, how can we make this a reality? Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. So now it's turning into kind of an event, kind of like I want to turn it into almost a festival, where I would like to do food trucks, get a bigger skate team out there, get like legit bands out there. Need a half pipe. Yeah, man. And
some ramps.
Yeah. And it's not, honestly, I hate saying this because, like, you know, some people might be offended, but I don't want to say it's a Christian event. You know what I mean? Yeah. And we're all people. That's how I always viewed it. You know,
everybody's welcome. We're just the way
people.
God was, you know everybody's welcome.
Right. And I never viewed myself as, oh, well, I'm a Christian and you're not. It's like, well, we're all people, you know, and
we're
God
all screwed up.
Right. We're all the same. You know, everybody, I don't care what you say. I don't care how good you say you are. Everybody has their blind spots and everybody has their vices. Said and done. You're either going to acknowledge it or you're not. You know what I mean? And so my thing is like, okay, let's invite people. Let's just have a good hangout time and let people know there's actually a light in the darkness. Yeah.
Yeah. You give the message, you know, people can hear the gospel, and I'm sure there's going to be lives that are changed just in that, but to have people come that aren't believers or don't have anything, that they wouldn't step into Tribe on a Wednesday, or they wouldn't step into church on a Sunday. Right. But if they're there and they see something, they see Andrew, you and your friends and whatever, you guys are hanging out and they want to be a part of that.
See me yelling on the mic.
Where the change is really going to happen is when they go to those Tribe nights on Wednesdays and you guys are talking about those questions. They see people loving each other, Christ-like love, and then that's when you'll start seeing the change.
And what I got out of the event was like breaking that. You're talking about breaking barriers. Yeah. I mean, you had like an event. Like if that wasn't hosted at a church, it could have just looked like a skate event or a music, some kind of festival or something like that. You know, and I think that allows people, non-believers or people that might be curious or whatever, like in youth specifically, to know that being Christ followers is not something weird or something, you know, like not cool or something like that. You know, it's like, no, it's like you said, we're just people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And we love God and we're trying to follow God, and that's it. And it doesn't change. Obviously, you see me here. I'm
Right.
It's kind of hard to believe that I'm a Christian, but
yeah, well,
true.
like, with the event, I had invited out a couple of my friends, and they're like, "What is it?" I was like, "Oh, it's a skate event. It's gonna be awesome. There's gonna be food, all this stuff." And then they're like all into it up until the point where I was like, "It's at the church," and they're like,
See, there's a perception.
Yeah, and I was like, no, but still, like, it's not gonna be like, they're not gonna be blasting like a sermon over the entire time. It's like all these weird conceptions that people have about church. It's like, no, come and see and look. And they were hesitant about it, but they came, and they were like, holy crap, this is a whole lot more fun than I expected to get from a church event. And I even had one friend.
Crap is not holy.
Holy crap, man! It's all good. Holy crap.
Just kidding.
And I even had one friend who he came and he was like, "This church is awesome. Like, I want to start coming more." But the weird position that it puts me in is, I'm youth because I'm way younger than a lot of my friends that I graduated with. They're already 19, about to be 20, and all that stuff. So they can't come to these youth things, and it was a weird time too where the life groups had just gone on break. So they want to come to this stuff, but it's like a weird position where that I get to do it because I stepped up to the leadership position. I'm still able to be a part of it, and they want to too, but it's like you have to.
So you're going to start your own Bible study.
I'll go.
Exactly.
I'll fit right in.
Exactly.
Me and Fernando
You get
fit
that-
right in.
That in between stage, man.
Yeah.
Except for Drew said I look my age. Drew, that hurt.
Yeah, that
That hurt.
about an hour ago. He's still thinking about it.
No, man, you be the example, man. You be the trendsetter. You said we prayed before, and I said I asked God for a revival, and I think it's going to start with Tribe. It starts with the youth because they're the next generation. They're the generation that's going to push God and be the reflection of who He really is and who He really wants us to be. Andrew, you just keep on doing what you're doing, man. You just follow Him faithfully, and He'll do the rest. It's not us, it's Him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is definitely, there's way more than we could talk about, but for time and respect for these guys, we'll close this thing out. But I'd love to have you guys back and maybe talk a little bit more about youth and just
for the Tribe event.
Yeah, man.
The second annual Tribe event.
Yeah, man.
Well, if you want to, Fernando, close with anything, or if you want to plug, I know you already did 6:30 Chino Tribe, but if you want to plug
Wednesday
anything,
nights.
Wednesday nights, Isaac. Every Wednesday night at 6:30, we were meeting up, and then we meet the first Sunday of every month.
And then what about
at Southland Chino?
Southland
What's
Chino.
the address? 555
5559 Park Place.
Chino, California.
That's right.
And then, is there any, do you have a social media thing, or how do people contact, if they want to contact you?
So the best way is Instagram, and it's the Chino Tribe.
Okay.
Nice.
We'll put on the show notes a link for you guys that are listening. You can scroll down and look at the show notes.
Thanks so much, guys, for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
No problem.
It's awesome.
With that, I just ask that you open your eyes, listen closely, soften your heart, and ask God to reveal Himself to you.
Amen.